Hello, episode 99 of Three Things with Ian. It is April 9th. It is snowing. On today's episode, we will talk about Snacks, a Disney cult classic, and the backwards progression of CGI. All right, let's dive in. All right, on the top of the ticket, I mentioned that these torpedo bats in baseball, right? It's an MIT physicist. He figured out that you can move some weight from the top of the bat to the middle, the sweet spot. Kind of resembles a torpedo. This is just like Draco Malfoy's dad giving the entire team the Nimbus 2000s, okay? That is the corollary. That is, once again, the richest, most elitist, bougie team getting an unfair advantage because, well, they're the Yankees. And the same thing happened to the Quidditch team. They got the brand new tech, the Nimbus 2000s. It's the same thing, so it's kind of funny. Anyway, let's dive into some actual topics of the day. Let's stick with a movie theme. I have a confession to make. I do not recall having ever seen a Goofy movie. It is possible that I saw it, and it just went in one ear out the other. I definitely remember the sequel where he does the X Games, blah, blah, blah. That's another story. But anyway, 30th year anniversary of the Goofy movie. You may have seen that I released a YouTube short. My wife was adamant that this is an amazing movie. This is a treasure trove, a gem. All the superlatives you can possibly think of, she brought out. We actually did something different. We watched a documentary about it, which kind of built it up. And then last night, took the dive, watched it with the whole family. It's like not even 90 minutes, 80 minutes or so. Holy smokes, man. This movie slaps. This movie is far better than it deserves to be, maybe. This definitely batted above its weight class. Honestly, the father-son dynamic between Goofy, Mr. Goof, and Maxie, his son, it's heartfelt. It's surprisingly nuanced. There's really funny conflict. There's really funny tongue-in-cheek jokes. It's entertaining. And the music, it's essentially a musical. Didn't realize that. Powerline is like this Michael Jackson-esque, really cool, slick dancer, singer with a really beautiful voice. And the main theme of the movie is just phenomenal. It's like a number one single encapsulated in and upon itself. The movie apparently is absolutely beloved. It's gained traction. It's gained fans over the course of the 30 years since it's been released. I highly recommend actually watching the documentary on Disney Plus that kind of goes through the way that the movie came to light. This was obviously during a very interesting time in Disney's history. This was like firmly in the Renaissance, but also they were coming out of some really deep financial issues. The Black Cauldron tanked. Disney kind of created two different teams, and so you have your A team working on Lion King, which obviously is another phenomenal top 10 movie of all time, and then you have another squad outsourcing some of their talent to France, kind of a hodgepodge, kind of an underdog story. They were tasked with making this Goofy movie, and it had no right to be this good. It just comes together in such a wonderful way. There's phenomenal set pieces involving possums, a tongue-in-cheek nod to another famous rodent in the Disney pantheon, Mickey Mouse. There's, like I said, there's some great dance numbers. There's no like clear villain, and so you kind of have both Goofy and the son kind of having to meet in the middle and kind of give up some of their own personal feelings to kind of get back into the relationship that sustained them when they were younger. It's just really, really good. It's the right kind of nostalgia, and it hit me at just the right time. I needed it in my life. Like I said, unlike most Disney movies, there's no clear-cut villain. Both Goofy and Max have to compromise and meet each other halfway. There's emotional depth. It basically is a road trip, and at some point, Max decides to change the itinerary to get to this concert against his dad's wishes. And there's important themes of communication, understanding, compromise. There's a lot of emotional depth and resonance to this movie. Obviously, it's not everyone's cup of tea. There's a lot of people out there that don't have an interest or just aren't in the mood for this kind of movie. But this really kind of struck me as really just a fun, like I said, heartfelt, dynamic movie that just they probably created it and didn't think it would have this extra life. It's had like another third and fourth lives where you have people who saw it as kids having their own children getting back into it, and so it resonates with multiple generations. So yeah, a Goofy movie, starring Goofy himself. Love him or hate him, he doesn't have a lot of brain cells, but he's got a lot of heart. His son Max, he calls him Maxie. Max is pining after his love interest. He promises her that he'll be on stage at this concert. There's a lot of things you kind of have to just look past, like breaking into a concert, getting on stage. Doesn't exactly age super well in our hyper-security, vigilant world. But anyway, check out A Goofy Movie. Let me know how you think about it. I really liked it. The soundtrack and Powerline are just some of the cool. Powerline's one of the coolest characters Disney's made. I'm gonna die on that ship. That's the hill I will die on. All right, let's talk about our second story. I'm not a golf fan. I couldn't tell you anything about golf hardly. I know that Augusta, the Nationals, is a beautiful golf course in Georgia, and the story though is the snack prices. Come on in, cat. So I got a visitor here. The cat just popped in. A trip to the Masters is going to cost you a lot of money, the plane tickets, the admission. But once you get there, though, good luck breaking $20 at the food concession stands. They haven't changed their prices in decades. So, oh my goodness, cat. Okay, sorry about that. The cat is going berserk here. Okay, all right. I'm not sure what's happening. All right, we're just going to go with it because this is live television. The prices for the Masters items are out of this world. $1.50 for an egg salad pimento cheese sandwich. You can get a chicken salad sandwich, a savory tomato pie for $3. You get $2 blueberry muffins, $2.50 for a fresh mixed fruit cup, $2 for soft drinks. Snacks, you have $1.75 peanuts and cookies, $3 for a Georgia peach ice cream sandwich. This is outrageous, right? In a world where the prices for everything has risen. We have very inexpensive, just kind of a cool throwback to like, hey, $2 for a soft drink. We're not going to charge you $8 for a bottle of water. So if you have $20, you will eat like a king at the Masters. Well, you've spent $1,000 on airfare and accommodations getting a ticket. So I was curious. I pulled up the prices of a hot dog at the Major League ballparks just to talk about this. And beer, of course. So the average hot dog price, a hot dog at a ballpark is not huge. It's not a foot long. You're not getting like a huge dog. It's a small dog. It's a modest one. The cheapest is $3 at Chase Field, Diamondbacks. Most expensive is Petco Park in San Diego, $8 for a hot dog. The average price is about $5.47, or is $5.47. So, should be cheaper. They definitely are jacking up the price. Beer, you're looking at cheapest at Denver Coors Field, $3.08. Most expensive is Wrigley Field, $11. Average is $7.18. So, in a world where everything is getting more expensive, I've never been to any golf tournament necessarily, but I thought that the national prices in Augusta, Georgia, to get food was interesting. It's one of the few places where you can load up on concession stand items and not break the bank. Okay, for our last story, let me keep scrolling here. You can spend time on the internet, as I think everybody who watches this and enjoys this podcast. I'm going to move the cat. It's driving me crazy. Come on, cat. All right. Okay, apologies for the cat. She's not in pain. She just likes to be dramatic. You can, when you're on the internet, there's this thing that I keep running into, and essentially, it's an argument. I don't know if it's actually serious or not. That's why I'm bringing it up to you guys right now. I want to hear your opinion. That we are encountering a backwards progression in CGI. That essentially they show an image from 2008, something from like 16 years ago. They have the CGI, and then they have like an example of today's CGI from like 2025. And a lot of times you're seeing like the original Iron Man versus the newer Iron Man stuff. You're seeing like early Transformers movies. There's a big example of the squid guy in Pirates of the Caribbean. And basically the argument, and it's on Reddit, it's everywhere, is that essentially there's a perceived and a real decline in quality. That as technology is increasing and the powerful computers are expanding, there's a regression, right? That there's a perceived decline in quality and an over-reliance on CGI and post-production, rather than a focus on practical effects and good storytelling. And this is, I think that there are parts of this that are definitely true. I think at the core, what people are conflating is the fact that there's a lot of essentially shovelware movies out there where they have the ability to do better CGI, but they want, because they're cranking out cheaper, faster, crappier things, they're rushing them. And there's not as much of a focus on the quality, and the emphasis is shifted to just, let's get this crap out here. So I call it the shovelware type of visual effects, where there's a growing movement, though, that I do appreciate, where we're kind of rebelling against CGI. I think this hit the high point when we had some Avengers movies that basically were unwatchable because nothing was real. You had characters on a green screen for 125 minutes, right? So I think that plays a role. I do think that when we were getting really good CGI, right? They were spending a lot of time, a lot of energy, and they were very particular about how it came out. And so as a result, it looks really good, right? And then technology got a little bit cheaper, a little bit more ubiquitous, and then there was just an over-reliance on CGI and poor CGI, and so it just doesn't look as good. I have seen some great movies recently, Mufasa being one. The Pixar movie, the Pixar show that follows that softball team, the Pickles, they have some really impressive new textures, and they're using like a felt-like substance through CGI to kind of give the effect of hair. I do think that objectively we do have better CGI than we had 20 years ago. I just think the application is used in such a way that it seems like it's backwards progressing. Look at the second Avatar. Look at the most recent Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes versus the first Planet of the Apes remake in 2005, 2006ish area. There is definitely a difference. So I think this is one of those internet theories that kind of comes around, and there are some compelling examples of really impressive CGI that were cutting edge, and then there's examples of it's been over applied. There's no point in denying that the fact that there was a time that's slowly ending now where they just, when in doubt, use CGI, and it came at the expense of the movie sometimes, and it often wasn't the best version of CGI available. It was sometimes sloppily, there was some post-production that was more sloppily engineered, and they didn't spend as much time really working it out. And then look at Jurassic Park in '94. Practical effects hold up really well today. Terminator 2, right? They may have a couple scenes with some CGI filtering and filling, but generally it's practical effects. Practical effects, if done appropriately, will always, to me, be the better choice. So I don't necessarily think that the internet is completely wrong with this backwards progression of CGI. I just think it's the way that they're talking about it is a little bit unfairly applied. So technology is definitely advancing. Computers are faster. There's more that goes into it. There's more polygons. There's more frames. All that jazz is increasing. It's just there's some examples where we had really impressive CGI probably before we. It was just impressive. It was ahead of its time, and now there's kind of a regression to the mean. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on the CGI technology. I'm a big fan of practical effects. I'm glad that we kind of have rebelled a little bit as a movie-going culture to wanting to see more human beings on film looking like human beings, and the stuff around them being practical effects if possible. All right, so we talked about torpedo bats and Draco Malfoy, and we talked about snacks at Augusta, the Nationals, and we talked about CGI, and we also talked about, oh my gosh, it was 5 minutes ago. Oh, the Goofy movie. The 30th anniversary is upon us. Please, please, please watch it, enjoy it, and tell me how you think. I'll be back tomorrow. I forgot to mention that I found a really cool deer skull in the woods. I'm going to post a shorts about the deer skull. So if you're listening to me, you've made it this far, 14 minutes in, thank you. Treat yourself to watching me unearth a deer skull in the woods. All right, take care, guys. Goodbye.